Hi, everyone. Good morning for those in America. Good afternoon for those in the UK. All right, let's go. So, hello, everyone. Welcome to this webinar. My name is Loic Garcia. I am a product specialist at Erplain. And today's webinar will focus on how you can extract the most out of your product catalog. So that means that we will take a look at how you can manage the different types of products on show in Erplain. So we are going to focus on them, see how they integrate with your sales cycle, how you can integrate each of them in your daily operations, what each of them do, what they don't, how you can make them work in pairs at times. So we are going to take a look at all those kinds of products, how you can use them, how they can impact what you do on a daily basis. So the way this presentation will be structured, we are going to start with a quick recap of each type of products, how they work, what you can do with them. It's going to be a short summary. Then we'll go into a deeper focus on each type of product. So there will be the variants, the packagings, the kits, and the assemblies. We are going to take a look at all of them, and we are going to go into detail regarding what you can do with them, how they can affect your operations, what you might gain from using them as well, how you can integrate that in your workflow in the future. And we are going to try to give you some examples that you can then use on your future endeavors. If you have any questions, you can let us know in the chat. We have a team that is currently available to answer all of your questions. If some of them slip through, I will take some time at the end to answer a few questions as well. If, again, maybe we're short on time or maybe they just slip through, no worries about it. We will get back to you with an email if your question isn't answered during the live webinar. So with all that said, thank you again for being here, and let's get going. This is my Erplain account. This is the one we'll focus on today. And we are going to talk mostly about your products, so your product catalog. And we are going to talk about the different types of product that we have in Erplain. So you have your single product, which will be your very basic average product. You sell one unit is removed from your inventory, and it doesn't really go all that far. It's the average product that you might have all across your catalog. But we will mostly focus on the more complex products today. So starting off, we will focus on variants. So variants will be your products, but with a differentiating factor between them. So I will show you how to set up attributes that you can use to mark differences between variants, how you can then set up different variants, how you can use those attributes to ensure that all of your variants are different, how you can set that up and use it during your workflow and your sales cycle. We are also going to look at packagings. So the packagings will be a way to show you how to sell in larger quantities by selling multiple items of the same product. So we are going to take a look at how you can integrate that into your workflow, how that works, and how you can create different types of packaging for your products. And then we'll get into a deeper focus on the more complex types of product that we have in Erplain, which will be the kits and the assemblies. So the kits and the assemblies are basically they're packs, they're bundles in a way. A kit will be a pack made of a number of different products. As you can see here, you get three different types of honey that you can sell as a kit. So the kit will be its own product, and when you sell it, automatically the units that are currently making parts of it will be removed from your inventory. Then we have the assemblies. The assemblies are a bit different given that we take into account a transformation that occurs on your side of things. So it's something you do the transformation on your end and then you sell the final product. It's to take into account the components making that product as well as that final product. So we'll go a bit deeper about the nuances of that later down the line, but that's the rough idea. About the kits, the main attraction regarding that is mainly to increase the average order value, meaning that you can create some kits containing a number of products. You can edit the pricing to make sure that it is attractive to your client base. And what you can also do with that is to, for instance, if you have some products that are a bit difficult to sell, slow moving inventory, basically, you can create some kits containing, for instance, two products that sell very well and include a third product that doesn't sell so well, which will make it a lot more attractive to your customer base. And you can also make sure that this is reflected in the pricing as well. But the idea is that you can use the products that sell well to ensure that you can also move inventory that you might be more in a rush to sell. You can also ensure product compatibility. That's the example that I showed you earlier with the kits. As you can see here, you see we're saying 3 different types of honey. You can basically stay in the same universe and sell products that are similar to one another. Most of this presentation will be on an account that shows mostly products related to food, but everything here is also applicable to other areas, other industries. Could be manufacturing, could be clothes, could be anything really. All of them are applicable, and we'll get into the details later on. First off, the variants. So the variants, what you are doing basically is taking a product, you're taking any of your products in your inventory, and you're making sure basically that you are creating a different version of it. So what you do, for instance, is that you create your first variant in here and you choose an option. So in the option in here will be the attribute that changes depending on the variant. So to manage those, you got to go into the product settings. And as you can see here in the product settings, I can take a look at my attributes. So those are attributes that I've already created earlier on. As you can see, they're basically differences that can occur between different products. I get different toppings, different sizes, different types of chocolate. You can create more of them and then you can use them for each and every of your products. But basically what you're doing here is that you create the options that will be available when you're creating a variant. So here you see the size, you see the type of chocolate, you see the toppings. If you were working in another industry, for instance, if you were working with shoes, you could add the size, you could add the color, you could add the type of laces, for instance. And then when you go into the product that you want to create variants for, so let's pick, for instance, this one. You go to create your first variant and you pick basically your first option. So the first option will be your first attribute that you will use for your variant. So for instance, in here, I can use the type of chocolate and I can decide, well, I'm making a white chocolate almond. And I got my first variant in here. As you can see here, I got my variant, I got my stock levels, I got everything in here, and I can still edit it. You see, I can update every information, I can edit the pricing, I can edit the locations. It's really its own product. But what you can do as well is then create another variant. And maybe this one might be using dark chocolate as the differentiating factor between the products. And then I can add my initial stock level, for instance. Let's say I have 120 already. I can add my initial costs. I can add my pricing as well. And basically what it allows you to do is to customize each and every of the variations that you create with your product. As you can see here, I've got my two variants. If I come back to my main product in a way, I've got my variants in here and I can see basically what they do. I can see my inventory. I can see the SKUs. If I add them, I can add different barcodes. I can add different pricing as well. For a variant such as this one might not be important, but if you can add another option. And in that case, if I decide to add another option, let's say I decide to add the 250 grams option, and then I create a new variant, this time I can also choose the size. So I can choose maybe a bigger bag of almonds. And this one might be also using white chocolate, but it will not be the same size as the previous variant. And I can also showcase that in the pricing. So I can choose that, for instance, the initial cost is a bit higher, the stock levels are a bit lower, and the retail price might also be a bit higher as well. I can add them in, and then I will have a new variant, and this one will be of a different size, a different price, and I can add more to those products. As you can see, you get the whole customization from it. You can pick and choose basically what you want to see. The idea is that you can showcase really how deep your product catalog is by creating variants of your products, regardless of the number of options that you have. You can add, as you can see, I can have the sizes and I can have the type of chocolate I use. I can add even another option if I need to. And then I can create variants based on all the possible combinations between all of those attributes. So maybe this one, I will add nuts to those. And then I can create new variants based on that. So that's the variants. And as you can see, you get the master SKU in here, you get the main information, but you can also check out all of them individually and you can manage them individually. If you go to create a sales order, for instance, and you're trying to sell off one of those variants, you pick the right location, you pick your product catalog, and you will see in here all of the variants that you have created. They will be available in here, they will be showcased in here, and you will be able to sell them off like this. So they will behave just as another product. You can give them their own SKU, their own barcode to really differentiate them as much as possible from the main product, but you can also just use them as is. So that's the whole variant side of thing. Then we also have the packagings. The packagings are a bit different in meaning that you are talking mostly about the same product, but you are selling it in larger quantities. So for instance, if I look at my caramelized almonds, as you can see in here, I got my product, so I got my SKU, my stock levels in all of my locations, I got my pricing. I don't have any variants yet, but I can create a packaging. That packaging will basically be a way to set up how many units I want to sell in this pack. So for instance, let's say you're buying a pack of 100 units. Could be anything, any product. You're buying a pack of 100 units and you want to sell them in packs of 20. You can create a packaging that allows you to do that, meaning that when you go to create a sales order or an estimate or an invoice, you don't have every time to type out that you are selling 20 units. You can automate that by creating, we'll just call them caramel 20, make it as simple as possible, and we're making a packaging of 20 units. And you can sell it to at whichever price you want. You can set up the prices that you feel are relevant to what you do, and you have a packaging like this, meaning that if I go to create a sales order, for instance, I will be able to see that in my product list. So if I go to my products, I type out caramel, I can see caramel 20 with the prices, and the price will be based on the stock levels that I have, but the stock levels of the main product. So I can see that with those 20 units, I can sell 20 packs of 20 because I have 419. If I add another one, then I will be able to sell 21 of them. So you can see every time the stock levels in here, you can see the packagings and you can see the content of that packaging. In this case, I can see that one pack contains 20 units of this product with this SKU and this information. So the packaging allows you to sell off larger quantities of each and every of your products. You do not have to sell just one packaging. As you can see in here, if I go on my packaging, I can see that it is a packaged product. I can see where the main product is, and I can create more packagings, which will also then show up in the list when I'm trying to sell them. Let's say this one is just going to be 10 units. I can simply create it from here. I'm just setting up the prices. And I will have a second packaging allowing me to sell more units of that product. The advantages of having numerous packagings is that you really gain a lot of time when you're selling large numbers of a product. You do not have to go back and forth every time having to remember how many units is in each pack, or having to type out the same quantities every time. If you know that you're selling in packs of 10, 20, 30, but you still want to track the inventory of that main product, because they both coexist in your inventory and your product catalog, you can still sell caramelized almond by 1, by 2, by 3, by 12 without creating new packagings. They both coexist in your inventory. The idea is the same for all of the more complex products in Erplain. They all coexist in your sales workflow. So then we are going into the more complex products, which are the kits and assemblies. So we already talked a little bit about the kits and assemblies, but now we are going to focus a bit more about on what you can really do with them and how they can impact your overall experience on the software. As you can see, I'm going to show you some that have already been created. I can create a pack that is basically a pack of a number of products that will be in there, and every time I sell 1 unit of these kits, I will get automatically removed all of the units that are part of it. So I can create a kit in here, for instance. I can call it a chocolate discovery pack, for instance. So it will be its own product, and then I can pick and choose basically the components that will be part of it. And as you can see, I can pick out each and every variant that is in my catalog. So I can choose, for instance, to have some chocolate almonds. I can add also some granola, for instance. But all of the variants that you create, you can also add them in those kits, and then they will be removed from your inventory when you sell them. And you can pick and choose also the quantities. So for instance, if I had 3 in here, means that every time I send 1 unit of the kit, I will automatically sell 3 units of those almonds. I can also add a discount to this kit. If you're in a situation where you're selling products and one of them might not be as attractive as the rest, you can still add a discount to make it more attractive to your customer base, and that way you'll be able to sell off larger quantities. Then I can add its own price to the kit. So here, maybe 12 euros. And then when I save it, I will get my own new kit, which I can sell like this, and automatically it will remove from my inventory all of the products that are in here. So if I go to create a sales order, again, picking client, picking a location, and I can see here my chocolate discovery pack, and it will tell me the contents of the pack. So I can see in here that in this pack, so in 1 unit of this, I will have 3 units of the 250 gram white almonds. But if I update it, then I will also see how many I'm selling every time. So the kits allow you to sell a number of products that you might want to get rid of, or if you want to create packages that are more attractive to your customer base, you can do that. The assemblies are a bit different. The assemblies are more about taking care of a transformation. So a transformation occurs when you're basically taking your components and turning them into a final product. So for instance, I will create an assembly right here. Let's say we want to make some hot sauce. So we add the initial stock. No, we're not going to create any initial stock level actually. I'm going to pick all of the components that are needed in here. So there will be some chili peppers, some acid, some garlic as well. We're going to keep this pretty simple. So we're just going to add those 3 components. And then you can add your prices for that final product. And you can save. Basically, what you do here is you set up the formula of that final product that you are going to sell later down the line. So let me show you this, means that I take my new assembly and I can see in here that I can transform those components. So here you see all of my components. You see the on-hand stock level for each of those components and how many I need per assembly. And that will automatically calculate how many units of this assembly I can create. So this works here on a food-centric basis, but it also works if you're working with anything pharmaceutical, if you're working with clothing, any type of industry where you have a transformation that occurs and you have your components that are also products that you want to track in your inventory and keep track of on a daily basis. You can also do that. That is also 100% applicable to that setup. And as you can see here, I can create up to 542 units of that assembly. Why 542? Because it is the stock level of the lowest component that I have. And as you can see, I need 1 unit per assembly. It will automatically adjust those quantities based on what you have. If by mistake or for whatever reason, if you're working with an industry, for instance, you're building furniture and you might want to get it back to its components. For instance, you're building a table or a chair, but you end up thinking, well, actually, I might need the components more than the actual table, the actual chair. You can also split that assembly back to its components. And it will, again, be based on the quantities that you have. And as you can see here, for instance, I will create 100 units of that assembly. And now that it's done, as you can see, the stock levels of each of my components have been updated. As you can see, I'm going from 542 to 442, but I have created 100 units of my hot sauce. So if I go to my inventory logs, in which I can track everything that has been done on the account, basically showing me who has done what and when. I can see in here basically all of my components. They have been updated. When I've created a number of units of this assembly, I can see that the stock levels have moved in here, but I've also added units of this assembly. You can sell those assemblies really as regular products later down the line. So if I want to sell some hot sauce, I can do that. I just, again, picking a customer, picking a location, picking a product in the list. And as you can see, I've got my inventory in here. I do not have the split like if it were a kit. I do not have the composition of that assembly because the transformation has already occurred. The stock levels have already been updated regarding the components. So it is a final product. It is the product that we have created in-house, and then we can sell it down the line. We can also sell the components. The components aren't stuck to an assembly or to a kit. You can still sell them off individually. For instance, let's say you want to add some garlic to that order. You absolutely can. And as you can see here, you will always be able to see the stock levels, which will evolve based on the quantities that you input. And for the assembly, it will also tell you how many units you can create with the inventory that you currently have. So I can create a sales order in here, and I have my sales order with my assembly, and I can sell it just as a regular product. So that's the rough idea on how you can ensure that everything works with your product base, but you can do a lot more with that. And we are going to focus a bit more on how you can mix and match a few different settings. For instance, and I think I see a question here about that. Is it allowed to create packagings from assemblies? It is. And let me show you. So if I go back to my assembly, so I'm going back to my hot sauce. As you can see in here, I've got 90 units left. I got 100 on hand, 10 reserved. I can create a packaging based on that assembly. So I can call it, let's just say 10U for 10 units. Selling 10 units, just adding a selling price, a purchasing price. And just like this, I've created a packaging with 10 units of this assembly, and I can then sell it just like a regular product. As I showed you earlier, I can sell it and have automatically 10 units removed from my inventory. So that's the rough idea on how your product catalog works in Erplain, and you can enhance that. If you have any questions, feel free to let us know in the chat. We will take a look at them. I'm just checking in the chat if I have something. Can you show the kit components in the PDFs? So you absolutely can. What you need to do first is take a look at your PDF settings in here. And as you can see in here, for instance, if I look at my PDF settings for my invoices, I can make sure that the kit components are showed in the PDF of my invoice. So I'm going to create an invoice right now. I'm going to add a kit in it so that you can see. So I'm going to add the kit that I have created earlier today. This one. You can see the details in here, but you will also be able to see them later down the line in the PDF. Now I'm creating my invoice. At first, it's a draft. Now I'm turning it into my final invoice. And in here, I got my PDF. And if I decide to view it and I split to this tab, as you can see in here, you get your kit, but you also get the components that are in here so that you can see how many units you're selling in total. As you can see, I've got 3 units of one product, so I get a total of 5 units. And I can also see the different variants that I'm selling. I can see the totals, I can see the taxes, I can see all the information in here. So you can see the composition of your kits in the PDFs. I'm just looking at the questions. How many attributes can I combine on my variants? So you can combine up to 3 attributes on your variants. So for instance, in here, I've got 3 different attributes that I can add to my products. If you are working, let's say working with textile, for instance, and you're working with a lot of possible variations for your product, and you want to add more than 3. In that case, the best way to go about it would be to simply find a difference in between your different settings that allows you to split them across 2 or 3 products. For instance, if you're selling, t-shirts and you got some with long sleeves or short sleeves, what you can do is that you can separate them as separate products, and each of them can then have up to 3 attributes on top of each other. So that way you can have thousands of variants overall, and you're not stuck with having to use, for instance, one of the attributes being shorts or long sleeves. So you can go up to 3. As you can see in here, I have added 3. So I can choose, for instance, nougatine, 500 grams, and milk chocolate. And that means that all of the possible combinations in here are applicable. So if you're working with different products and you want to edit the sizing, the materials that you use, the colors, anything that might change, for instance, laces on a shoe, or the type of wood that you might be using for furniture. You can add them in here, and then you can stack them on top of each other so that you can have a lot of variation and you can have hundreds of different combinations possible. As you can see here, I'm creating a new variant. I can add an initial cost, an initial stock level if I need to. I can add a different price as well. I'm going to get it a bit more expensive. And I will have my new variants with all of those features in it. All of those products can then coexist, meaning that your main products and all of those variants can coexist. You can add them to the same document. You can create packagings from them. You can create assemblies. You can create kits. You can basically mix and match all of those features together to make sure that everything fits. Just looking at the questions. Can I use my assemblies within other assemblies? You can. It will make things a bit more complex regarding what you do. But for instance, I can see in here, I'm just looking at the assemblies that I've created. Let's say I've created some hot sauce. You can create an assembly and then use another assembly as a component within it. As you can see here, the hot sauce is an assembly. If I use a lavender honey that I've created beforehand I can also add it as a component. And those components will be used to create a sort of final product that will be composed of those assemblies. Keep in mind, though, that if you are doing this on a daily basis, you might need to avoid making too many mixes like this, because every time you add an assembly to another assembly, it gets more and more complex. And if you go down the rabbit hole of having assemblies that are assemblies of assemblies of assemblies of assemblies, might get a bit confusing for you on a daily basis. Again, let us know if you have any questions. We're here to help, and we're available for you. As mentioned, if any questions slip through the cracks, we'll make sure that you get a response either via email or later down the line. Can we publish assemblies onto the B2B store and Shopify? So the answer is yes. I will not be able to show you right now on this account, but we might be able to provide you with some screenshots. You absolutely can. They will be able, you go to your product page for your assembly, your kits, or whichever product, and you will be able to either send them to the B2B store, send them to Shopify, or remove them if they're already in here. Also, and I think it's something that needs to be mentioned, a product that is part of a packaging, part of a kit, part of an assembly isn't locked to this assembly. Meaning that, for instance, if you are creating different assemblies, let's say you're creating different assemblies for different types of honey, you can make sure that each and every flower, for instance, that you're using in each of those varieties of honey can be in different assemblies, in different kits, in different packagings. The raw honey, for instance, will be a key component in all of those kits, in all of those assemblies, in all of those mixes. So they're not locked down in any way. You can still use them. You can still mix and match. The same goes for the variants. So nothing is set in stone, and you will see when you are trying to toy around with those concepts that you can create a lot of things and that you can have a lot of fun trying to mix and match different features to make sure that those products are really representative of what you do. And I think it is time to wrap it up. So I would like to thank you for being here today. Thank you for your questions, for your attention. If any questions slip through the crack, we will get back to you shortly in the next few days. The replay of this webinar will also be available online shortly. We'll get back to you regarding all of that. And yeah, thank you for your time, and I wish you a very nice day. Goodbye.